Welcome to this week's Eternal Monday, where an Eternal format version of Lost Box goes head-to-head against Blastoise Water Box, featuring the Blastoise with Deluge from Boundaries Crossed.
If you're new here, you might be wondering what the heck even is the Eternal format. In short, it is the unlimited format with a ban list. So this means the format features cards from the original base set all the way through to the most recent tournament legal set. Although it's an unofficial format, it's an incredibly fun format with a lot of rich deck building and gameplay experience to be had. If you're interested in learning more about the Eternal format, you can do so at justinbasil.com/eternal.
Up first, we'll quickly look at Lost Box. This is an Eternal format version of Lost Box, so you're not going to see Comfey in here. You will instead see Jirachi from Rising Rivals. You'll be using its Detour to copy the effect of the supporter card that you've used that turn, which in most cases will be Colress's Experiment. So you'll play a Colress's Experiment and then Detour to effectively use a second Colress's Experiment each turn. It's pretty good. You get your Lost Zone filled up pretty quickly that way. This deck is also running 4 copies of Lost Vacuum to really turbo through your deck and to get that Lost Zone to 7 and then 10 as quickly as possible, so that you can take advantage of both Mirage Gate and of Sableye and its Lost Mine attack. This deck's main attacker, if you will, is however the Amazing Surge Kyogre, which does 80 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon, and then you can use things like Technical Machine Devolution to devolve all those damaged Pokemon, or you can try to finish them off with Sableye. As always, Cramorant is willing and able to do 110 damage for free if you have 4 cards in the Lost Zone, and pretty much everything else about the deck is there to help it set up and do what it's supposed to do. I have talked to the pilot of this particular build of Lost Box, and they've said that they really wish they had a hard hitter, something like Roaring Moon, for example, or the Yveltal, the Amazing Rare Yveltal, but their attack costs would have made the deck a little bit more complicated to have a decent energy count, so they forewent those particular options in this particular build, but they are of course exploring more ideas for the future. Blastoise Water Box is quite the known quantity in Eternal format. It's very similar, if you will, to the standard format version of Chien-Pao EX. It has some other options that deck doesn't really have, including Blastoise GX and Divefall, but all in all, it's more or less the same general idea. Claydol is your draw engine for this deck instead of Bibarel. Claydol is one of the best draw engines the game has ever seen, allowing you to put up to 2 cards from your hand onto the bottom of your deck and then draw until you have 6 cards in hand. So you're going to be drawing like crazy with it. And then you have Brooklet Hill to help you get your water type or fighting type Pokemon out. So that includes your Baltoy and your Squirtle. Any of your basics that are either water or fighting type are going to be coming out. And since everything in your deck that's a basic Pokemon is either water or fighting type Pokemon, you're going to find them. Of course, you're not going to want to be pulling Lapras out that way, but all the same, the card helps a lot. So Blastoise Water Box is quite the known quantity. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and jump straight into the game. And we are starting out with a coin flip, getting cards set up. Looks like our Blastoise player is starting out with a mulligan. That is a little unfortunate. Gonna shuffle back up and try again. Another mulligan. Oh no, that's not great. Yeah. So you guys are seeing this sped up and cut down, but they are shuffling actually quite a lot. Maybe a little too much actually. Not as obvious with the speed up, but they shuffle a little too much sometimes. All right, we are going to see those mulligan draws on the Lost Box side. Not really a thing you want to give Lost Boxes extra cards. That's just kind of rough. But all we're going to see from Lost Box is a dropping of the Manaphy, and that's it. So we're going to see Radiant Greninja draw a couple cards for our Blastoise player. Getting another Water Energy and a Claydol off that. We do see a Dive Ball in their hand. Dive Ball, a very good option at the moment. Letting them get whatever they really need. They're going to go for a Lapras to find an Irida, which itself is going to help find some other cards. Lapras will find a Water-type Pokemon and another item card, which in this case is going to be Dive Ball. So they're going to get a Chien-Pao with that Dive Ball. Kind of get themselves set up. And manually retreat the Greninja into the Chien-Pao. Use Shivery Chill to get a couple of water energies out of the deck. Thin that deck, and then help get some more energy in the discard pile. We do see a Brooklet Hill off that computer search, and a Baltoy coming down. This deck is working its magic, really setting up quite nicely, actually. But we do see a pass off to Lost Box there. So Colress's Experiment right out of the gate. Colress's Experiment, finding a Colress's Experiment. Not always what you want to see, but one of those is hitting the Lost Zone. I see another Jirachi go down onto the bench, and we see the Cramorant come down off of Brooklet Hill. And a Detour, using the Colress's Experiment's effect as the effect of Detour. Having to choose which 2 cards to throw in the Lost Zone. Choosing Sableye and another card there. We see a Versus Seeker for Irida. Irida once again going into the deck. Getting a Squirtle and a Dive Ball. And then Dive Ball itself finding Blastoise. Throwing a rare candy from the hand onto the bench Squirtle. getting Deluge up and running. Shiver Chill once again, finding 2 water energies. Those 2 water energies going to have to go onto something to power up that Chien-Pao. Yeah, there we go. Powering up that Chien-Pao, getting a couple extra energy on the Blastoise so they can attack with that Chien-Pao. Knock out that Jirachi. Jirachi's a Poke Power, or Poke Body rather, will allow that Lost Box player to search the deck for a card, any card they want, put it in their hand though. So very, very powerful effect that they have access to here. I'm going to play that Colossus Experiment, finding a Mirage Gate, putting a Verse Seeker, and it looks like the 3rd Jirachi in the deck. I'm not sure. Into the Lost in there. Radiant Greninja going down onto the bench. We are seeing a Lost Vacuum, getting rid of Bucket Hill and Faba. Double Mirage Gate onto this Kyogre here. That Jirachi in the active has free retreat, so all it will need to do is retreat in order to pull that Kyogre into the active spot, which could be quite devastating here. We do see Artisan come down. The Lost Box player going to fail the Artisan, not actually going to find anything, deciding that there's really nothing they need at the moment. After all, I'm going to play Cramorant down instead. We do see the Amazing Surge hit, knocking out 2 Pokemon on the Blastoise player side. That Claydol and that Lapras both going down there. Pretty rough stuff. Blastoise also pretty severely hurt. Just 60 HP remaining there. Never want to leave your Pokemon with 60 HP remaining. We see Deluge onto a Squirtle and a discard with Radiant Greninja to grab 2 more cards. An unfortunate Claydol there. Irida going to find a water Pokemon and an item card. Going to find a Chien-Pao and a Superior Energy Retrieval. Going to get some energy back out of the discard pile. Take a knockout on this Kyogre. Kyogre going to go down, but that might be too little too late for this particular match. I do see a Baltoy come back down. That's not horrible. Superior Energy Retrieval, finding 4 water energy. Going to throw them somewhere into play just to have them in play. So they can be discarded. Throwing a couple on pretty much everything on the bench, it looks like. Gonna knock out that Kyogre. Kyogre's kind of hurt the Blastoise side pretty badly, though. And that's what I was afraid of. Sableye coming down on Lost Zone's side here. That free retreat and that Sableye could spell doom. It'll hit both Squirtle and Blastoise for knockout here with Lost Mine. Just got to get to 10 in the Lost Zone for our Lost Zone player here. Lost Zone box. Gonna shuffle a few cards back into the deck with Ordinary Rod there. Ordinary Rod, a bit of an odd inclusion for Eternal format. Super Rod generally tends to be preferred because of its flexibility, but it is what it is. And I think that's all she wrote. That is 10 cards exactly, I believe. And yep, that's going to be a 6 and a 6, knocking out both those Pokemon. The Lost Box player only going down to 2 prize cards, but at this point, the Chien-Pao's player, or the Blastoise player rather, their setup is so rough, so disturbed, so disrupted that they feel they can't find a way back and recover from that in any reasonable fashion. So they're going to go ahead and scoop it up. And that is all for Lost Box versus Blastoise Water Box. Blastoise Water Box is really good in this format. It's actually very flexible. Cards like Nessa really help it just do what it needs to do, to find what it needs to find when it needs to find it, even under intense situations like item lock with Banette or Vileplume. But it just so happens that Lost Box, it's got its number. And when you get hit as hard as you did with that Amazing Surge, no Manaphy in play, you're going to get punished for it. And that's exactly what happened here to the Blastoise player. And it cost them the game, ultimately. They couldn't find a way back to make a comeback and take out that Lost Box player. Maybe spamming Radiant Greninja repeatedly would have helped. Perhaps running a copy of Lost City instead of Chaotic Swell, and then just spamming the living crap out of Radiant Greninja to take knockouts would have been good enough, but it could be a difficult one. If you can knock out the bench barrier on the Lost Box side, which in this case was actually Manaphy, interestingly enough, and then just repeatedly cripple Lost Box by taking out its attackers, I think there's a shot. But ultimately, the Blastoise player wasn't able to go that route. Doesn't have Lost City in the deck. Couldn't really target down the Manaphy in an efficient way that would make the Lost Box player the more vulnerable player, and of course didn't have bench barrier in play themselves. So it is what it is. But that was today's game for the Eternal format. I hope you all enjoyed it. And if you happen to find yourself in the San Antonio area on March 16th, you can join us for our next in real life Eternal format tournament. Deck validation and registration begins at 11, with round 1 to begin approximately at noon.
As always, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.